Hey guys, so welcome back. This is the video on life after death, which I was talking about before that I'd be posting soon. And I actually wanted to get this out around October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd, but it didn't work out like that. But it's kind of here now, and I'm happy to be getting this to you. So life after death is a huge topic, and I'll try to get it all together in this one video, but it spirals off into so many other different understandings of who we are and what we're about and how it's all connected that it's kind of difficult to fit all under one little, in one little neat little package. And please remember that this is an understanding of where we are at now, right? And as our consciousness develops and unfolds and grows, a different understanding emerges, right? So whatever is stated here, right, or whatever we're talking about whenever we're talking about life after death is according to our current understanding of things, right? So it's always subject to change. So my little experience with life after death is actually more of a NDE, non-NDE experience. So what's an NDE? NDE is a near-death experience, and so many people have had one, and they all confirm the life after death, that our consciousness continues to exist outside of this time-space reality construct. And but it's also known that you can have an NDE without actually having this life or death trigger experience or trigger moment that catapults you into an experience like that. And that's pretty much what I had. Way back when I was starting, just beginning my experience, beginning my spiritual journey, I was taking meditation classes, and in the group that I was in, the lady who was leading the meditation group, who was leading this class, she had a very powerful guide, a guide that really came through in pushing each one of us forward or taking care of us, especially the ones that were ready to open up, that were ready to learn, that were ready to know. And she gave this guided meditation, and we were supposed to be in the group and having this meditation in the group, but Carlene wandered off and I had an entirely different experience. So I ended up going up a staircase, and this staircase was absolutely beautiful, and I could feel myself getting lighter and lighter as I went up. And when I turned around to look down the staircase, and there were beings floating up and down the staircase with me, right? And they would always greet me lovingly, like nobody ignored me or anything. And I didn't know what to do, so I was just, whatever I was, that was my reply. And I realized that in the bottom of my being, I'm a good person, because reactively I was replying positively, replying like that's what came out of me. And so I also noticed that I would leave behind bodies, so layers of my own self. And when I looked at these layers, and it would be in certain intervals, right, where this layer of body couldn't go higher, this layer of body couldn't go higher, and it would be left behind. I could see these layers lying there like discarded sweaters, and there was like literally no emotional connect to it. And even though I knew what it was kind of like, okay, whatever. And so I continued to move up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, 3 guides greeted me, and they came down in like these beams of light. It was 3 light beams that just came down, and they got denser at the bottom and acquired physical features. It could be that my subconscious laid that over them. And they welcomed me back up. They were incredibly loving and patient and kind. And they walked with me to this golden astral city. And as they walked with me through a garden, because we went through a garden first, they were welcoming me back, talking to me about things. But also my memories started to be triggered. So certain things I'd forgotten or I'd laid aside that we all probably know, such as consciousness, right? Higher consciousness will always organize lower consciousness. And it's never going to be upturned. It just doesn't work like that, right? So little things that just came back to me about the reality of our lives and the universe that we live in, and on and on and on. And they left me at the portal, or a kind of a hallway that went through the city walls, and told me, like, your room is waiting for you on the other side. And I was really shocked because I didn't expect to have my own space in there. And so as I walked through this tunnel alone, because they stayed in the garden, the wall started talking to me, and I realized everything is consciousness, right? Everything. Even the things that we don't have, that we don't realize are conscious, that we don't realize because we create things out of consciousness. Everything, consciousness permeates everything. So the only thing that we have to create with is consciousness itself. I hope that makes sense. So I was walking to my room, and the wall started communicating with me, kind of like, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten? All you need to do is set your intention and touch me, because higher consciousness will always organize lower consciousness, and you will be where you want to be. And so that's what I did, was I touched the wall, and all of a sudden I could feel myself being the still point, but everything rearranging around me, and I was where I needed to be in my room. I didn't have an exact concept of what my room would look like. I didn't have, layout or anything like that. I just said my space, my room, and there I was in it. And the space automatically organized around me, right? Organized around itself around me in a way that made me, feel at home, like this was my space. And in the center of the room, there was a column, a pedestal, and on top of that was a book. And in this book, I could read whatever I wanted to know. But that book changed into a stone, and that stone would reflect images, or I could touch the stone, it would just transfer to me. But even this concept of the pedestal with the stone wasn't necessary once I completely tapped into that reality. It was just, I could absorb knowledge and information from wherever I was. Then my guide floats by and says, there's somebody that I need to introduce you to. So off I went. And looking out through the window and floating out through the window, which was also a doorway, I could see this vast energy sea just spread out. And there was this vast terrace or patio. And there were hundreds and thousands of people. And they were all welcoming me home. There was this just homecoming welcome. We're so glad to be here, that you're here. We're so glad that you came to visit. We're so glad. And that was significant, because that's how I knew I wasn't staying, was that literally they were glad that I came to visit, right? And I knew that I knew these people, but I couldn't remember for the life of me where I'd met them or what they, but I knew there was a connection. I knew them. And they were absolutely ecstatic to see me, and it was genuine, absolutely genuine. So then I had a really deep experience that I won't, like, that's holy ground. And then on my way back though, right, through my room again, and out through the garden, and there the guides picked me up, and I knew I didn't want to return. I knew I didn't want to go. And they gave me the reason that I came back and that I was coming down here. And they also gave me some other information as well, considering life after death and on life itself. And I went down the stairs, and I picked up all my little energy suits again, and just every time I'd step into it, just be like a click down, a click down, a click down, and then I was back in my body fully. So at the time though, because I was at the very beginning of my spiritual journey, and I'd had experiences but no concepts to align them to, I didn't know what that all meant. I just knew that it was significant for me, and it of course still is. I remember it like yesterday. It's another vision I had, which I can share, was before that I was very deep into Christian mysticism, and I was praying a lot, and wanting to emulate the mystics, wanting to have these experiences that the mystics had. So I would get up at 5 in the morning, I would pray, which was a kind of a meditation as well, and also work out and then go to work. And one of the experiences, the visions I had, was all of a sudden I was back and I was singing. I was singing in this whole chorus of beings that were singing around the Godhead. And it was so magnificent. That was our entire life purpose. That was our entire doing. That's all we wanted to do. That's what we were created to do. That's all I wanted to do in that moment, fulfilling my life purpose and singing to the Godhead, singing songs of adoration and love and joy and peace, and just singing to the Godhead. And as we sang, these vibrations would wave out from us, and the vibrations would create off in the unknown realms to us. And we didn't care. We absolutely didn't care what was created or that it was creating or anything like that. All we wanted to do was sing, and we sang out of the fullness of our being, and it was magnificent. And I still to this day feel like this glimpse was given me of home, that to encourage me, right, to push me along, so to speak, because I was entering into a very tough period and time of my life. I mean, the beginning wasn't really that easy either, but this it, I don't even know if it topped it, but I think because I was tired at the point, it kind of topped it, you know? So anyhow, moving on to life after death. All this in consideration, I then started my journey and started researching and started digging up things, and I will be posting some links below that I'm referencing, such as Swedenborg, and you guys hear me talk about that all the time. There's a magnificent channel on this on YouTube. They don't know about me. I'm not receiving any endorsements. They have no idea I'm alive. I just find the information that they provide and the way they structure it is absolutely great. And it's all based off the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg, who was a Swedish researcher and who wrote down all his experiences with the other side. And so they do have some videos on that as well, and I'll be posting the links to that in the description box below. But also Chico Javier and Allan Kardec, the founder of Spiritism. So many have written about what spirits have told them about what the other side looks like. And there's also Ingo Swann, who had a very important point, which I will be addressing in this video too. And cultures all over the world have different ways of going about the deceased and the dying. But there's one book that struck me profoundly, and that was the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, or the Tibetan Book of Life and Death. I'm not quite sure how it's translated in English, but I'll be posting a link to that as well below. And what I found interesting was that how to accompany someone who's dying in that book, because they have, I think it's a 49-day ritual, and they start months ahead of time preparing the soul to leave the body. And you can do that with your family members as well, and it has a lot to do with acceptance and conversation and pulling up positive memories and letting them feel like they did contribute to life in some way, and so on and so forth. And then after the passing, it continues with songs and ceremonies and rituals to guide the soul to release the grip on this world, because it's not like the soul, or in their belief system, that the soul just automatically releases and moves on. It's a gradual releasing and letting go. And the way I see it, it's kind of like you know, when you're intensely at a place of work and you're really putting in your best effort and you're intensely connected to this work environment and this workplace, and you leave that place, you move on to another place, you still need this transitionary period. You still need this period of letting that old stuff go. And it could be that you even call up your old colleagues, or you meet them for coffee or something, and, you know, just check in with what's going on in that place after you left. And so it's similar when we decease. It's like it was such an emotional connection and so intense that it takes a while for some souls to let that go. So I'll be talking here in this video mostly about my understanding and what has been taught to me by Spirit, but also through the information that was brought to me. And I hope you forgive the background noise. But as I was taught in meditation classes, it's okay to have background noise, right? And you just allow it to allow you to release even more, because you know that the world is continuing without you. And then when you step back into the world, into the space, everything's okay. So you can just let that not distract you, right? So yeah, what I'll be talking about in this video mostly has to do with what I've been taught by Spirit, and what my grandmother, who is deceased, who has been guiding me from the other side, has shown me, and of course what information I've been guided to ingest, right? So like I said, I'll be linking that in the description box below. Okay, so the understanding is there that we're mental, spiritual beings, right? And that we're having a physical experience, and that this experience arises out of our understanding of ourself, or our understanding of our place in the world and how we see things, right? So when we pass away and we shed this body, first of all, the first step is when you actually die, like the actual death process is not painful at all. And a lot of people will say that they're not afraid of death itself, but they're afraid of how they're going to die. And I can take that fear, or the information that I have can take that fear as well, because it's, on the one hand, yes, it is sad to have an illness that you go through for years, and it is it can be extremely painful, the conditions under which a soul slowly releases a body. However, when it comes to like accidents, traumatic experiences of that nature, sudden death, sudden intense painful trauma, what I've been taught is that the soul spirit releases the body, right? Releases the body shortly before impact, for example. And that even in the long-term illness process, people will be able to, if they look closely, realize when the soul has left the body. And usually this is around the time where people live up, right? And we think they're coming back around, things are going to get better. And then all of a sudden the body really goes downhill rapidly. So people will have observed that, especially in people that have been ill a long time or in the hospital for a long time. All of a sudden it goes up, the energy rises in the body, and the soul releases, the spirit leaves the body, and the body goes downhill and then deceases. But when it's, like I said, an impact or things of sudden nature, the soul spirit releases the body before impact. So that trauma that the body receives is not really imprinted onto the soul or spirit. In the moment of actual death, when the body leaves, the spirit leaves the body for good, it's felt like some will describe like the sudden bang, the sudden noise that they hear, this loudness that they hear. And I will say, I liken that to when you're suddenly waking up. So it's like, have you ever had that sleep where you're dreaming intensely and all of a sudden you hear this bang, this loud noise, and you snap up and you're immediately wide awake and you're looking around thinking, what was that? And that's literally you crashing back into your body. So people will sometimes hear this noise, they hear like a trumpet or a loud bang or some things of that nature, and all of a sudden they're outside of their body, and it's a sweet release. It's like they can suddenly be themselves. They're suddenly fully themselves without the weight of the physical experience. And then the next thing that they see is either there are loved ones there or angels there to guide them on to the next step, or they sit in darkness for a while, or they end up in various spheres, such as hell, some have described that, or the infamous tunnel with the light at the end of it. And Ingo Swann speaks about this tunnel and the light of the end of it, and he says, don't go to the light. You will be taught to go to the light, and you will be taught a lot of information along that line, but he says that this is all disinformation, and it's in the agenda of forces that have inserted themselves between God and us, and they are extraterrestrial entities that recycle our souls. So we're then brought to the moon. The light at the end of the circle is actually the moon that we're seeing, and it's a soul recycling center. So we go to the moon, or our souls do, and they have the ability to cloak themselves and to show themselves as various entities. So if we're Christian, we'll see Christ. If we're Buddhist, we'll see Buddha. If we're whatever we want to see, they'll show us. And they send us right back to earth without us having integrated or worked through our experiences or understand anything that we just went through in our lives. And so what happens is we take this unintegrated experience and we come into the earth again traumatized, and the whole cycle starts from before, but it's actually worse as we ramp up that negative energy actually and intensify that. And what we're actually supposed to be doing is intensifying the positive energies, and I'll talk more about that later. So we come in unprepared for this life again, and we're carrying trauma and karma from previous lifetimes, because actually we're not supposed to be coming in here with karma and trauma, and actually we're only supposed to do this lifetime once, maybe twice, and actually it's a voluntary cycle that we do here. It's not something that we're thrown into or forced to do. It's not a punishment. It's something we volunteer for, and as such, usually once is enough, because there's so many other various lives and lifetimes and places to be, that in this most intense of the experiences that we could have, because the earth life is one of the most intense cycles that we could go through for changing our vibration. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We usually don't need to do it more than once, right? So it's not like we've been taught that we need to keep coming back again and back again and back again and back again. It's usually once is enough, and we move on to other experiences elsewhere in the vast realm of universes and galaxies and other ways of existing, and so on and so forth. So Ingo Swann states that when you see this light at the end of the tunnel and you pass away, you're not supposed to go to the light. Do not go to the light. Whatever you do, refuse the light. And there are other Native American traditions that state similarly. That, for example, the ancient Mexican Olmec or Toltec tradition states that as well, that you will have to sit in darkness for a while, and you will have to persevere in that darkness. And Ingo Swann says he did not go to the light when he was having that experience. He sat in the dark and he observed others sitting in the dark and patiently waiting. And that's what we're supposed to develop here in this lifetime, is this ability to sit in darkness and hold our light and patiently wait until we are picked up by divine messengers of God. And it's kind of like a test to see if we're worthy of being brought into these high vibrational realms. So now we know what happens to those that go into the light. Those that wait in the dark, some have really described it more descriptively than Ingo. Ingo says it was just darkness and he was sitting there, but there are others that have described the hell experience. Now understand that hell is not a godly or a divine creation. It's something that humans themselves create, and through distancing themselves further and further and further from God, from the divine. So in this hell realm, some people experience it as pure darkness, and they will write about that or have talked about that. And others describe it as a hell realm where there are roaming spirits that are continually harping on about the same thing. Now this could be likened to Dante's Inferno or to the Catholic Purgatory but it's numerous people have gone through that in their experience of life after death. And there are always angels or higher beings that are roaming through hell, but these beings either don't recognize them or they flee from the light, misunderstanding what the light is. They're in fear of it. So that connects as well to another group, and I'll explain that group right now. So once these energies start, right, once we release our body, and either we've already been sucked through the tunnel into the soul recycling center, or we've waited and loved ones or angels have come up have shown up to whisk us away, take us away, or for some for some reason we've landed in the hell realm, or we also become earthbound spirits. And there are two types of earthbound spirits: the ones that don't know they're dead and the ones that do know they're dead. So we already know what happens with those that go to the recycling center. We know that what happens with those that are, well, we'll talk about those that have been whisked away by angels and loved ones in a minute. But these two types of earthbound spirits, so either are connected to the earth or something that they loved or extremely hated. So some kind of extreme emotional attachment to the earth realm and the goings-ons. Some of them don't realize they're dead. They've been, knocked out of their bodies through some kind of traumatic event, let's say a soldier on a battlefield, or a sudden accident hiking and falling down a cliff, or things of that nature, but they've been slammed out of their body. It was a traumatic death. They stand up again and they don't understand why things don't work the way they do. And this can go on for Earth time, what we call years. And the reason why angels, because so many then ask, well, why don't angels come get them? Or why don't their guides help them, or their loved ones? Well, they're trying. But because the deceased ones are in a vibrational reality, not a physical reality, they cannot see what lies outside of their vibration, right? So if they're vibing on this level, they will see everything on this level and beneath it, but it's very hard to see above that, right? And so as they vibe on this level and they're paying attention, they're focused on the earth and what's happening on the earth, they see us, right? So they'll walk through us, they'll try to get our attention, but we don't, but they won't see the angels or the guides or the loved ones that are vibing in a different vibrational reality, that see everything that goes on beneath their reality, and of course on their plane. So what those angels then do, or guides and helpers, is they come to us. They come to mediums or psychics or people that are spiritually open and open to these realms, and they work through us with those spirits, because those spirits can see us but they can't see them. So they'll use us, in a sense, as a medium to get to work with these spirits and help them, release them out of their psychosis, if you want to call it that, of still being alive, still being on this earth realm. The next ones are the ones that are knowingly dead and choosing to stay here. And that is, of course, in this free will universe, that exists as well. And so these are the spirits or the energies that we talk about that get people to do certain things, that used to be heavy smokers in life, or used to be drinkers in life, and then crowd around the guys at the bar and get them to drink just one more. And as they drink, they live vicariously through this person and get the same feelings that they got. And if these spirits choose to continue down that pathway, continue down that road, sorry, background noise, living outside life. But as they choose to continue down that road, it can be a very dark road indeed, and it can end up moving into demonic qualities and the really dark places that want nothing to do with God anymore. Then there are the energies, of course, that are trapped in hell, and angels move through these hell places all the time. And the same thing happens, right, is that once these beings or these energies are ready to release this experience of hell, and they're ready to give up everything that hell entails, they're ready to surrender to divine organization and divine forces, if you will, then they're able to tolerate the angelic light, and they're allowed to step into heaven. Then there are the others that were picked up by loved ones and angels, and where are they brought to? They are brought to a space where they are able to heal, right? And in this healing space, part of the healing space is, and part of the healing time is a life review. And we have to see this life review not as a judgment, right? It's always said as a final judgment, and we're made to fear it in a way, even though we're, in the meantime, now we're being taught that it's not God that judges us, but we get to look at our lives and see what occurred. But because our life is fundamentally here to manifest a vibrational change, and that's what I'm going to be talking about next, we look at it kind of like an artist looks at its artwork, right? So we compare this life with an oven, and we had pottery, right? And we've pulled it out of the oven, and we're looking at it. Did it, where's something missing? Is this what we wanted? Is this how it's supposed to come out? And that's how we're looking at our life review. It has nothing to do with you are a good person or a bad person, or you deserve this or you deserve that. Is the final product, are we happy with it, right? Do we feel the need to go back and redo something? Do we need to break a apart something, karmic bonds? Do we need to dissolve something, karma? Do we need to recreate something, right? Do we need to experience something else, right? Soul ties. Do we need to be there for someone else? Do we need to help someone else? There's so many variables, right? But that's a time where we get to choose, how is this going to continue? And a handful choose to go back, to come back into this realm, to come back into this life. What my grandmother showed me in a dream as well was that there are many help centers, like so many that are floating around this earth, just in a slightly different vibrational reality. It's just this slight shift over, and this slight shift over is for us enough to not be able to see it, but they're there. And so they're hanging there, and as we leave our vibrational reality, other realities become open to us and aware. And my grandmother at the time was working in one of these facilities, helping people to acclimatize, helping people to assimilate. And they're ever prepared to help people, guide them in their consciousness to release certain concepts, because that's what it's all about, is to disengage from the identification through conceptualization of reality, and to allow this beingness to unfold. And so the thing is, though, that just like I likened life before to an oven where something gets transformed, it's like an oven for us. It's one of the most intense experiences a soul can go through, and not many souls or spirits go through this lifetime here on this earth, or in similar vibrational realities, earth-like realities. It's a very intense time. That's why it's so short, and many other lifetimes in other vibrational realities or other planets are much, much longer, like hundreds of years of what our count would be. And but ours is so long and so short and so intense, and it's a shift in our vibration. Why is that? Well, as Swedenborg teaches, after we get back to our heaven, let's call it, right? Because we're allowed to experience our version of heaven. We're allowed to play around in that for a little while until we get bored, and then we're looking for something to do. So we're given something to do, such as help others, become guides to those on earth, and so on and so forth. But what inevitably happens is that we're also being allowed to see God, right? We're also allowed to see higher, like true heaven and higher vibrational realities. But for the most, or the vast majority of spirit beings, it's still a too high vibrational sphere to reside in. And it is the complete dissolution of everything that we are. And so we experience it as being very hot, as being intolerable, as being so bright we can't stand it. So we leave that space. If we even step into it, we leave it immediately. And eventually we move, but we're given an idea of what it's going to take, right? And eventually we move into settling into our true vibration, because on the other side you can't fake a vibration just like you can on this side through having a body, right? You are what you are. And like attracts like, and eventually we start swimming with those who are in a like vibration as us. So what happens is that we stop changing, we stop growing, we stop developing, and we start contributing to a certain stream of consciousness, right? And this stream of consciousness becomes a concept, so to speak. And what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to maintain as high vibrational a reality as possible, as high vibration a stream of consciousness as possible. But since we're surrounded by these entities or beings that think the same way, act the same way, vibe the same vibe, right? We don't see a necessity to change. We don't have that friction that we have here on earth that forces us to develop a different point of view, develop a different vibrational being, right? So this lifetime is incredibly important to develop ourselves and shift our vibration, change the vibration that we're at, so we can vibe higher, so we're able to transmute more energy, bring in more love, maintain a concept of love, maintain a vibrational reality of love for love to flow through. So when we're with our like-minded folks, nothing ever changes, right? And so we're stuck at that vibrational development that we've that we've developed ourselves to, and the earth life gives us a possibility to develop to a higher vibration. So once we're with those, it kind of ends there. Like, we can either decide to vibe there for all eternity, or we can decide to focus on shifting ourselves, which is more hard, because when you're swimming with your school of fish and this is the way it is, that's the way it is, right? So it's harder to break out of in that reality than it is in this one right here. So this is why this reality is such a jewel. How to help loved ones from this side that have departed, that have passed on, is through prayer and positive thinking, because you're helping them in their new reality of vibration, right? Their new reality of energy. So if you send them positive energy and positive vibration and positive thoughts, it goes a long way. It gives them the energy to move where they need to move. It reminds them of what they're doing and what they're supposed to be doing. It helps them, give them the energy to push forward. So don't hesitate to say prayers. Don't think like, oh, your prayers are not going anywhere. This is all just a bunch of shit, crap. It really is helping them. So don't hesitate to pray for them, as they, of course, pray for you. What else? How do spirits communicate, and do you lose your identity? No. See, the thing is, we're pretty confused about our true identity here on this planet, and we confuse personality. And this is personality, but this is not my body. This is not my core being. This is not who I am, but my core being shines through my personality, right? So just like you wear clothes, you wear a personality, and that personality adapts to the experiences that you have here in this lifetime, right? So that, of course, goes. It goes when you pass, right? And but what remains and what always stays is your core vibration. And yes, you do have a unique core vibration. You're a note that plays in the universe. You're a note that plays in the symphony and this beauty of the of all that is. And you do have a core vibrational note that carries through all your past lives. So those of you that do past life regression, some of you will realize that you're always feeling like the same person. You know, if you are able to see yourself from the outside, you'll see, you know, you're shifting your expression, but you always feel like the same being, because you are, right? So your core identity never changes. And when we do mediumship, what connects strongest is love, right? So this can be love for another person. Two people in love will have the best connection. It removes all static out of the connection. But it also can be love for a specific place, such as a castle or a house or jewelry or what have you, right? So a strong connection of love or hate will open up this sympathy portal, these lines of sympathy, along which sympathy, not in the traditional sense of liking or aligning to, but including that, but sympathy as aligning to, yeah? Sympathy as in aligning to so it can also be a negative sympathy, right? But going into vibrational connection with, right? Then the information can flow along that line. So anything that this being has an attachment to, it'll be an easy way to connect to that being and communicate with that being. And yes, there is a fundamental intelligence, and this is the difference between mediumship and psychic reading, right? So if you guys do mediumship, especially through British spiritualism, which I find has the best foundational mediumship courses, along with spiritism, which really teach you some things, because on the one hand, yes, spirit will teach you, but on the other hand, some things you need to be taught by people that have walked the way before you, you know, and it just shortens your learning. And it teaches you things that you wouldn't have come up with by yourself in some cases. I don't need to explain all this, but they will teach you that, right? They will teach you that, how to, what's the difference between psychic and a medium. And a psychic taps into the energies that are here, the energies around a person. So a psychic can also read the memories of a person that they're sitting across from. But mediumship is the medium, right? Because mediumship is not necessarily instigated by the medium. It's the spirit connecting to the medium and communicating through them. So this intelligence, right, which still exists, is connecting to the medium and giving the medium the information it wishes to communicate to its loved one for whatever purposes, right? And so usually they will give information that reminds the loved one of this person, so they can say, yes, that's grandpa, that's grandma, right? Because a lot of us don't allow room for change. We don't allow our spouses to change. We don't allow our children to change. We don't allow other people to change. The way we have them in our minds is the way they are, and that's that. So if these beings came through the way they truly are now, a lot of people here wouldn't recognize them anymore, right? So they give this is the way I was in life, this is what I used to look like, this is how I carried myself, this is what I thought, this is how I acted, and the other can say, yes, I recognize that. But then they move into the message of release, right? Of hope, of love, of caring, whatever it is that they feel they can help their loved one tap into and help them release something and push them forward on their way a little bit, right? So with psychic readings, it doesn't happen like that. It's literally a reading of what that person remembers, right? And picking the information out of the aura of the person that they're sitting across from. So yes, when you connect with deceased loved ones who are connecting with you, because I explained before this difference in vibrational reality, loved ones, guides, spirit helpers, what have you, try to connect with people or spirits in this vibrational reality. They're not focused on the higher realms, they're focused on the here and now. They work through us to connect to those people that they want to reach. So we literally are like a telephone. And so that's that, and how spirit communication works, and how spirit, why spirit would want to communicate as well, right? Let's see. If you have any other questions, I hope you enjoyed that. I don't want to make it too long. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the comment box below. I'm excited to hear about your experiences, your thoughts, your insights. And we'll keep this series going if you like, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. Alrighty, so don't forget to check the description box for further links to more information underlining what was stated in this video. And yeah, have fun with it. Take care. Bye.